So thank you for the invitation to be with you. And today, as has been said, I'm inviting you to join me in reimagining progress, to think with me about where progressive abortion agendas have brought us and where they are taking us, and imagine better, because both lives matter. Both lives speaks into government, health sector and community provision regarding issues associated with pregnancy crisis and abortion. We hold in tension and consider on balance the best possible care pre and post birth for both lives involved in pregnancy, the woman and her child. Our vision is for a people and place that values the lives and health of women and children before and after birth and promotes the well-being of both. Our ethos is an ethos of life, seeking to create a better story around pregnancy for women and their children. As I said, we speak to government and society about the related life circumstances that can lead women to fear pregnancy, birth or parenthood and consider a termination of pregnancy. And of course, by that, we're talking about an induced abortion by medical or surgical means that is intended to end the life of the developing preborn human. As Christians, we believe every human being bears God's image and has inherent dignity from conception to natural death. And Jesus' own conception in his mother's womb affirms the value of both lives in pregnancy. But this isn't just a faith perspective. Unlike the previous contributors, we look at both lives, and people of all faiths and none agree that science confirms that unique human life begins at conception. We might debate on when the value is given, but that's when life begins. With increasing detail, science shows us how the unborn life develops day by day, week by week, throughout those approximately 40 weeks. Science also reveals the ongoing biological connection between mother and child throughout pregnancy and beyond, including when that little life ends before birth. Lived experience tells us what pregnancy means, and when we give birth, we see and hold and hear the child that we've been getting to know for 9 months. It's a magical moment, but it's not magic. The Both Lives Matter campaign launched in 2017 amid challenges to Northern Ireland's abortion law as activists pushed for expanded legal access. Unlike the rest of the UK, for those who don't know, Northern Ireland had not adopted the 1967 Abortion Act. And of course, across the rest of England, Scotland and Wales, abortion on request had increasingly become normalised in those 50 years. But in Northern Ireland, views on abortion laws and of course the practice were very different. The Northern Ireland abortion law, often labelled misogynistic, antiquated and oppressive, we defended as life-affirming because it protected both lives in pregnancy and balanced their lives and health as much as humanly possible. Northern Ireland had maintained a system of legal, safe, but rare abortion. So our campaign had a positive message. Again, contrary to what was said in the previous discussion, lives had been saved by the law, so laws matter. Using government statistics from England, Wales and Scotland, we compared abortion rates over those 50 years and showed that Northern Ireland's more restrictive abortion laws had resulted in significantly fewer abortions, approximately ×6 annually. Our campaign included a report, and we had a billboard campaign stating 100,000 people are alive today because of our laws on abortion. Why would we want to change that? Now, the Advertising Standards Agency received 14 complaints that our billboard was misleading and offensive. But after nearly 6 months of robust investigation, they upheld that statement, saying evidence indicated there was a reasonable probability that around 100,000 people were alive in Northern Ireland who would have otherwise been aborted had it been legal to do so. By standing for both lives and challenging pro-abortion myths that restricting abortion doesn't save lives and legalising abortion doesn't increase rates of abortion, we confronted directly what many call a progressive agenda, which is the normalisation of abortion. Now, sadly, in 2019, with no sitting local government, Westminster intervened on what was a devolved matter and decriminalised abortion in Northern Ireland, imposing a new abortion framework. Abortion rates since then have tripled. Why does this matter? Because lives matter, and abortion is a life and death issue. Law shapes culture, defining who is legally protected and respected as human and who isn't. Professor Glaser and Harriet have explained the ongoing review of Scotland's abortion law and have also pointed to the fact that Westminster will likely debate this month the decriminalisation of abortion there for England and Wales. And you will hear them citing that Northern Ireland is now the example they want to follow, without admitting that we are the example because they imposed it. But debates about abortion are part of a wider global movement. Today, I'll be focusing on the why behind the review, why we reject abortion ideology as progress, and why we reimagine progress for the well-being of both lives. We are not pro-life, we are for women and for life. We are pro-both. Although we are in Scotland speaking about the review here, we need to remember that abortion practice, politics and ideology sits within a legislative, cultural and historical context that is both national and global. Over the past nearly 60 years, emancipation and liberation for women has become defined in and determined by the ability to end our pregnancy at will. Now, I am a woman. I have 3 adult daughters. I have 2 sisters, 4 nieces, and 3 goddaughters. Women's health matters very much. But I don't believe that my health and well-being depends on my ability to terminate my pregnancy. Healthy, normally functioning female bodies with their capacity for reproduction are seen as a problem to solve. A former British Pregnancy Advisory Service CEO said that abortion is the answer to unwanted pregnancy and essential for women to be free and equal in society. So that definition of freedom includes not only the choice of when to be pregnant, but control over the pregnancy outcome. Abortion is framed, as we've heard, as normal health care. As early as possible, as late as necessary, no questions asked, my body, my choice. Support for abortion is often equated with being socially and politically progressive. But we believe that this view has failed women and their children and dehumanised our tiniest family members. Calls to decriminalise abortion rather than being progressive echo a past before both women and children were recognised and protected in law, instead being considered the property of men. Feminist leaders of the 19th century, so the first wave feminists, rejected the status quo that they lived within, condemning the male dominance that crushed women and children. They demanded a society where women could support themselves and their children. And social justice campaigns developed to address what they saw, quote, as the causes of abuses such as infanticide and abortion that lie in the degradation of women, and the remedy is the education and enfranchisement of women. One of the early feminists, Sarah Norton, successfully argued for women's admission to Cornell University and wrote what's on the slide behind me. Perhaps there will come a day when an unmarried mother will not be despised because of her motherhood, and when the right of the unborn to be born will not be denied or interfered with. Nearly 170 odd years later, progress has led us to where the right of the unborn to be born is being denied and interfered with. Is that progress? The stated aim of the review in Scotland is to ensure continued abortion access. Abortion is framed as a healthcare matter like any other, but science tells us human life begins at conception and abortion terminates that life. Within that framework, the only equivalent health service would be intentionally ending a human being at a later stage of life. The review's premise is also that abortion is a social good and as such will likely expand, as we've heard, the parameters of its choice. Reflecting on the expert panel's minutes, I had a bit of a light bulb moment. In discussions about current and future law, it was all about abortion choice. The woman's ability to choose abortion and access it mattered above all else. In stark contrast, hence my light bulb, viewing pregnancy crisis through a pro-both lens meant and means that we see two lives in need. So our response is all about advocating for more choice, the fullest range of choice, so that women always have also a choice to continue their pregnancy, because both lives matter. In Scotland, most abortions are for socio-economic reasons. The majority coded as unwanted. You're 2 to 3 times more likely to have an abortion if you live in the most deprived area than if you live in the least. So we can't limit abortion to a healthcare procedure. Health and social care combined must provide a connected support pathway for women facing pregnancy crises. Women don't need to know only how to terminate their pregnancy, but they also need to know how to access support to continue their pregnancy. Abortion is not just an abstract or political issue, it's a life and death matter, and as such will always be one of the most sensitive and contentious acts for any individual, authority or government to initiate. Abortion law and practice demands careful and ongoing review, and that's why we were pleased to take part in this review. Our view is grounded in medical science. Pregnancy is not simply a particular state of being in regards to one life form, the pregnant woman. Neither is it just a missed or late period. That's language that's increasingly being used. According to one English dictionary, the definition of the word pregnant is when a woman has a baby or babies developing in her body. Termination of pregnancy, similarly defined, is the induced destruction of the embryo or fetus. Whether we are pro or anti-abortion choice, I hope we all share a desire to respond to women facing a pregnancy crisis with compassion. We all acknowledge the real challenges women face, a lack of emotional, material and physical support that leads to pregnancy crises. From a pro-both perspective, it is unjust for any woman to feel she cannot have her baby due to her circumstances. So we seek to address the underlying causes limiting her ability to continue her pregnancy and give birth. Now at this point, because I'm concentrating on the why, I want to say in our submission responses we went into a lot more detail about the how and the what, and if anybody would like to see what we've said, they can email and I will send that to them. We base our views on abortion law on reliable data about abortion rates and reasons, but crucially also on the voices of women and men who've shared their experiences with us. And on our website, we have a wide range of those stories. Too often, fear and a perceived lack of choice drive women to terminate pregnancies that would otherwise be wanted. And fear is a poor decision maker. I'll share Miriam's story. Though supportive of our campaign, she declined to attend an event celebrating the 100,000 lives saved by our laws, explaining her baby was not one of those lives. She had been in a bad relationship and felt she had no real choice. She said she should have had the choice to continue, and that's why she supported us. Beth and Sarah were both 21 at the time of their pregnancy crisis, and those early 20s, that's the age when most abortions occur. Neither of them wanted to terminate, yet both were encouraged or even pressured by partners and family members. Things were said like, "It's not a good time, there'll be a better time." Or, "A promise made, you'll have another chance later." 2 decades later, I was meeting them. Beth still mourned her one chance. She had never got pregnant again. And she recognised that abortion decision that she hadn't really wanted, she couldn't undo. It was a permanent consequence to likely a temporary crisis. Sarah was had struggled for 2 decades with self-harm and guilt before finding healing through counselling, through support and forgiving herself. But both remained affected by that choice they'd made and by the silence and secrecy that still surrounded it. One female patient with recurring mental ill health told her GP, who shared with us, "I know when it started. It was when I had my abortion at 16. Though the law provided abortion for these women, and this was all in the context of GB, not Northern Ireland, though the law had provided abortion, they did not see it across those 20 years as healthcare. Each had suffered mental or physical health issues that they linked directly to their abortion. The abortion providers provided the choice of abortion." So is the current system truly pro-choice or simply pro-abortion? Why is abortion law being reviewed in Scotland? To ensure that abortion remains the primary option, or to promote a full range of valid alternatives? Any meaningful review must also consider not only abortion, but also the reality of authentic, informed choice. The needs of women facing unplanned or crisis pregnancies extend beyond abortion provision. Choice has to mean more than the ability to terminate a pregnancy. For the women who are navigating complex emotions and considering how the new life would affect their current and future circumstances. What have we heard today? A commitment to provide abortion as an immediate desired healthcare solution, as I said, often a permanent fix to a temporary problem, and we compare that with conversations around voluntary relinquishment in adoption. In consideration of the permanence of that decision, there is counselling throughout pregnancy, and the relinquishment can't be made for 6 weeks after the birth. There's ongoing support. And that's right. But that permanence must be applied to abortion decisions. Pregnancy is private and deeply personal, but society recognises the need for public support for life before and after birth. While Scotland and the rest of the UK funds abortion access, equal commitment should be made to support women to choose life for their babies. A compassionate response demands genuine life-affirming options be available, with government frameworks funding and facilitating alternatives to abortion. According to the UK Pregnancy Crisis Helpline, 16% of women contacting them feel coerced into abortion by partners or family. Given that 55% gave no reason for the contact, they recognise coercion rates may be higher. While this is a small sample, they say, any sign of pressure toward unwanted abortion should concern us all. Claims about abortion regret, post-abortion disorders and harm are frequently dismissed or minimised. especially by advocates of expanded abortion access and reduced medical oversight. Studies indicating harm are often rejected. Meanwhile, the voices of women who regret their abortions, well, they can be silenced or ignored. We ask, are they abandoned by the system meant to care for them? Society's celebration of abortion as progress only deepens their isolation, leaving them to carry the burden of their regret alone. After nearly 60 years of pro-abortion choice policies, we can see the societal impact. Abortion rates in Scotland, England and Wales are at record highs. As already stated, the biggest drivers of abortion are not a defined or determined health need. It's a lack of material and relational support, job insecurity, financial insecurity, partners' lack of support. Proportionally, those most at risk of being terminated are disadvantaged, disabled and ill. Mental health services, which are already under-resourced, are critical because abortion is often justified on mental health grounds, assuming it is less harmful than continuing the pregnancy. So as a slight aside, I had a pregnancy crisis at 21, the same age as Beth and Sarah. Unlike them, I didn't terminate. One doctor told me not to throw my life away by changing my life plans. But when I met Beth and Sarah, it was apparent to me the daughter that I then had, who was in her 20s, well, I hadn't thrown her life away. The mental health panic that I had felt during the crisis had ended for me while theirs still continued. But in the current system of abortion data, longitudinal and connected data on abortion's mental health effects is lacking. Any review of abortion law should consider care pathways that provide those genuine choices. These must be independent of abortion providers and offer non-directive, non-judgmental support from pregnancy confirmation through birth, or, if abortion is decided, and post the procedure. Yet, current trends push toward decriminalisation and demedicalisation of abortion, overlooking that pregnancy involves two lives. If any review focuses solely on expanding abortion access, for example, removing face-to-face care, and removes the associated safeguards and protections that medical oversight provides, we enable coercive and forced abortions. One story behind me is England, one story is Scotland. Abusive partners who forced their partners to unknowingly abort a wanted pregnancy. Governments have a moral and legal duty to protect both lives as far as possible. Laws matter. They establish medical safeguards and legal protection, as well as provide a sense of justice for mother and unborn child, which is always vital, especially in cases involving coercion or abuse. When we look at countries where abortion has been decriminalised, looking at Canada and Australia, both of those countries have considered the reintroduction of laws against coerced abortion and have considered what that could look like. Both countries rejected them because anything that limits abortion access cannot be allowed. Removing deterrence against self-induced late-term abortions can also normalise such a dangerous action for women. It's considerably more dangerous to self-induce an abortion in the second or third trimester than in the first. But it also sends a message about societal acceptance of abortion, including for viable babies up to the point of birth, and opens the door to potential infanticide. Proposals as part of decriminalisation of abortion in Westminster include the repeal of laws against concealing the birth. But it's not just the birth of a baby who then maybe is relinquished to be adopted or fostered. It's concealing the birth and the body of a baby. That would no longer be a criminal act. a baby's body could be discarded like rubbish. Despite medical advances enabling care for the earliest unborn babies, we risk treating unwanted unborn lives as disposable. Is this progressive, a human right, or inhumane? Most abortions do occur early in pregnancy, the vast majority. With telemedicine and self-managed abortions becoming common, the nature of care has shifted dramatically, from hospital-based surgical procedures to remote chemical abortions without in-person evaluation. In a self-managed abortion, we ask what and where is the care offered during the decision-making process, and that question was asked. How is gestational age and location of pregnancy assessed? How, where and when does objective and non-directive counselling occur? Medical and healthcare professionals providing abortion services are not the best equipped or trained to explore alternative options or offer additional services, and nor is that their responsibility to do so. Government websites designed to support informed decision-making for pregnant women should offer a centralised resource that comprehensively covers all available options. This resource should provide clear, unbiased information on continuing with the pregnancy and parenting and choosing adoption, alongside accessing abortion services. In addition, it should offer links to support services, including counselling, financial help, emotional supports, ensuring that women have access to the resources they need. By consolidating this information in one place, government websites can help women to make well-informed choices, particularly within the context of systems that promote early medical abortion. Time is of the essence. Systems that primarily provide digital access to information and remote virtual care make it even more important that the point of access into the care pathway provides comprehensive information. Women should not be required to trawl through the internet searching for trustworthy information and available supports as they try to decide between continuing with or terminating their pregnancy, particularly as pregnancy resource centres outside of the NHS who offer other choices may be presented as rogue providers. When the abortion is self-managed at home, questions remain about care during and after the procedure. The push to demedicalise abortion reduces healthcare oversight and accountability, increasing risks of and abandoning women to monitor and manage complications alone, and opens the door, as we've said, to abusive and coercive behaviours. The post-abortion care that would have been given immediately after a surgical procedure is gone. Later follow-up for physical and mental health, including contraceptive advice, is often lacking. One sexual health doctor I spoke to recently was telling me that 50% of unwanted pregnant, or in 50% of cases of unwanted pregnancies, the women are currently not using contraception. Without mandatory follow-up care and better data collection, there are gaps in care, gaps in understanding care needs, and gaps in evidence to assess the safety or harms of current practices. Reporting on abortion complications in the UK is inconsistent, with rates of complications ranging from as rare as 1 in over 3,000 to as common as 1 in 17, highlighting the urgent need for improved data and transparency. The 1 in 17 was only obtained through a Freedom of Information request, connecting abortions to hospital admission statistics for women who've ended up after a self-managed abortion going to casualty because they don't go back to the abortion provider. In recent weeks, tying in with that report, the Ethics and Public Policy Centre in America released a report where they've analysed health insurance claims from nearly 866,000 medication abortions across 5 years. Their findings revealed that serious adverse event rates were 22 times higher than current FDA labelling suggests, with a serious complication rate of 10%. By contrast, the Scottish Government have acknowledged limitations in drawing robust conclusions due to smaller population sizes and reported no concerning increase in serious complications or later gestation and medication abortions at home, and concluded that early medical abortion at home is effective and acceptable to patients. Policy on abortion care must be informed by comprehensive evidence-based data, not ideology or predetermined outcomes. Given the potential physical and mental health impacts of pregnancy crises and abortion on women's long-term health, it is critical to develop wide-ranging, connected and longitudinal data systems. That data is essential to accurately monitor health benefits, risks of harm, and inform frameworks of care that support women fully. Women deserve consistency in the information they are given about pregnancy, regardless as to whether the pregnancy was planned, unexpected, unwanted, or a medical crisis develops. Inconsistency in information and language does not serve as a positive impact on mental health outcomes. Women need to know what the abortion procedure entails. Compare the information given and language used when referring to an induced abortion or a spontaneous abortion, miscarriage, at the same stage of pregnancy, second trimester, between 12 and 20 weeks. For an abortion, women are told they swallow a tablet, they pass the pregnancy, there might be a bit more pain because it's later, as in the first trimester, and a bit more bleeding, but it all should be over in a day. If you go into a premature labour because it's a miscarriage in second trimester, very different language. The language of labour, giving birth, your baby has died in the womb, acknowledging shock and distress. Two women, same stage of pregnancy, very different language and attitudes between abortion and miscarriage. Or information about the disposal, what happens after the miscarriage or abortion before 24 weeks. In the context of a miscarriage, sensitive disposal of your baby's remains, potentially burial or cremation. If you choose early medical abortion at home, the language talks about the pregnancy tissue being passed with bleeding when you go to the toilet, flush, or bleed into a sanitary towel and dispose of as usual. Compare that to undergoing abortion at the same stage in a hospital setting. We will deal respectfully with your pregnancy tissue, in keeping with national guidelines for sensitive disposal. What does that different language and tone do to a woman's mental health? Lynn's story is on our website. She had an abortion at 19, was told it's not a baby yet. Didn't feel any impact mental health-wise until she had a subsequent pregnancy. During that pregnancy, getting scans, medics referring to her baby, she realised what she'd done with her abortion, and that's when her mental health problems started. Inconsistency in language and care doesn't help women. Their health and well-being during a pregnancy crisis, whether they continue with the pregnancy or choose abortion, it's all part of a continuous health journey. Abortion care should not be siloed or isolated from the broader health and social care system. A connected pathway of care is essential. When a woman has an abortion, there should be ongoing communication and data sharing with her wider healthcare providers, such as her GP, reproductive health or mental health services. Current and future healthcare decisions for that woman should be informed by a complete medical history, including abortion details. However, a concerning disconnect currently exists. Abortion services do not automatically notify a woman's GP or other primary healthcare providers post-abortion. This creates a gap in care continuity, potentially undermining efforts to reduce stigma and support holistic health. One GP who's concerned about that disconnect gave us this quote. And in reaction to an NHS document, National Service Specification for Abortion Care, this GP said, systems should not automatically send discharge letters to GP, etc. My question is why? It's healthcare apparently. So why is the main healthcare provider not getting informed? I thought they wanted to reduce stigma. So what does decision making and counselling currently look like in a pro-abortion choice system? Are alternative pathways to abortion clearly signposted and supported? What information is given to women about gestational age and abortion procedures? In cases of fetal diagnosis, which medical professionals are involved during, not after, the decision-making process? One woman shared that all the conversation was about her baby until there was a fetal diagnosis of abnormality. Then the language changed to fetus. As we've explored, while pregnancy is a deeply personal journey, society has long recognised the importance of public support before and after birth. The phrase, "my body, my choice," deserves deeper scrutiny, not only because it elevates one choice, abortion above all others, but because many women feel pressured into it. Partners, families, friends, and societal narratives all exert influence. So we must ask, is there really free choice when one option dominates the cultural and institutional landscape? And it's important to remember abortion is never a private act in practice. It always involves others: medical professionals, healthcare systems, public institutions. I'm conscious of who I'm addressing. Professor Glaser, who was here, and other medics in the room with deep experience. I don't claim to speak for them, but I do ask, what about the impact on the healthcare professionals themselves? One study in Australia and New Zealand, but an international study, exploring emotional well-being and support of midwives who provide termination of pregnancy care, found that 73% of midwives felt emotionally affected by their experience of providing late-term abortion care, yet less than half were even informed of the potential psychological toll by their employers. The report recognised that these professionals are at high risk of burnout and compassion fatigue, yet globally governments are increasingly asking midwives to provide these services. We've heard directly from midwives who describe the emotional strain of dehumanising the baby to a fetus during the abortion and feticide procedure, only to rehumanise the baby afterward, offering grief support, helping parents say goodbye. This emotional dissonance has real mental health consequences. In Australia, similar stories emerged during a recent legislative debate over legal protections for babies born alive after abortion, a failed abortion. The bill didn't pass because opponents feared it would jeopardise access to abortion. But those debates drew attention to the emotional trauma midwives experience when unable to offer care beyond comfort to babies born alive after late-term terminations. Made worse because, they said, some were carried out for psychosocial or financial reasons, not because of a health need for the baby. What kind of medical culture are we creating where only one life is recognised if it's wanted? Where healthcare workers are forced to reconcile their duty to care with policies that may contradict their conscience. We've also heard from midwives and medical students who say, whether it's perception or reality, that a pro-abortion culture in medicine can act as a glass ceiling. Conscientious objectors report closed doors, stalled careers, and even comments that they don't belong in the profession. This isn't theoretical. In Scotland, the case of trainee midwife Sarah Spencer hit national and international headlines. She was put on special leave and faced a fitness to practice investigation for expressing her beliefs, not for any breach of conduct. She was cleared, but the fact that she was sanctioned and silenced speaks volumes about the culture in which she and all of us are working. This culture of silencing extends beyond the abortion clinic. Across the UK, buffer zones, whatever name they go by, are restricting peaceful presence and expressions of support for unborn life. Arrests and investigations have triggered legal challenges, raising serious concerns about freedom of speech and proportionality. Scotland's review of abortion law doesn't take into account, because it's not in its remit, the wider ripple effects on education, pastoral care, the arts, media, professional unions and public discourse. There's no union for any sector in our workforce that I'm aware of that doesn't have a pro-choice abortion position. When one narrative dominates, people feel unable to speak. Silence becomes self-protection in a culture quick to label dissent as bigotry. All of this highlights the urgent need for a more balanced, humane approach in law, practice and culture. As I draw to a close, I return to the title of my presentation, Reimagining Progress. It is long past time to ask, what does real progress for women look like? For nearly 60 years, British governments have provided and privileged one response to a pregnancy crisis: abortion. Despite the language of choice, we must ask honestly, is the system truly pro-choice or simply pro-abortion? Unless we offer meaningful alternatives, real supported viable choices, abortion rates will only continue to rise. Women who in other circumstances might choose to carry birth and love their child are being left with no visible path but termination. And disproportionately, it is the most vulnerable whose lives are being ended. In every pregnancy, both lives matter, and governments have a moral duty to serve both to the fullest extent possible. In 2025, it is clear that the idea of my body, my choice has implications far beyond one individual. That choice requires participation, often unquestioned, from everyone. Healthcare workers deliver it, civil servants implement it, the justice system enforces it, educators teach it, taxpayers fund it, the rights culture demands it. And all the while, lives are being lost and others are being deeply impacted. We think it is time to rethink what true progress looks like, because both lives matter. So any meaningful law and related health and social care framework should safeguard the well-being of both the woman and the child she carries. It must offer compassionate, informed and connected care, not just for some, but for all involved. That is the progress we must dare to imagine and strive to build. Thank you.